I want to come to you, Captain Thomas, first. This idea of an uncontrolled airfield, a small airfield like Baramati, where the captain or the pilot has to often rely on his own discretion. The ATC is located in Pune. Is it an accident waiting to happen? Is it far more dangerous when you are landing a small private aircraft in a small airport like Baramati?
Good evening. First of all, it's absolutely distressing to come on air each time for a tragic event like this. Our heartfelt condolence to the Honorable Minister's family, and our heart goes out to that young little girl who was the co-pilot of this airplane. And Captain Sumit Kapoor was a few years senior to me. He has briefly worked with us in Jet Airways as well as Air Sahara. Now, having said that, to your question of are uncontrolled airfields dangerous? Not necessarily. Uncontrolled airfields are there all over the world. And I do fly business jets into many uncontrolled airfields. However, in today's day and age, I don't understand why we do not have navigational aids that are making approaches to these kind of airports very easy. I believe today that whatever information that we have, this was a case of low visibility. When you say 3,200 meters, when you have visual flight rules, it generally requires 5 kilometers. Now, what has happened? We absolutely will not know without DFDR and ATC transcripts. The cockpit voice recorders, the ATC transcripts, and as we keep coming on the channels to tell you, sometimes it's not very nice to tell you, I told you so, particularly in tragic events. Now, this company has had another air crash a couple of years back. The report of that has not yet come out. So what we'd like to draw your attention right now is to the scene of the accident. Did you see the visuals there? It is a picnic spot. There are policemen there who don't know what they're there for. The least they can be doing is to cordon that area off. That's complete sanitization of that area is required because that's completely filled with evidence. Now, what we see there is everybody is trampling over that and people are passing judgments on what has happened. So, like I said earlier, we do not have the requisite information to tell you how this particular airplane crashed. Was this Learjet a problem? No, Learjet 45 is a very good airplane. And it by no means is an easy airplane to fly. Let me tell you that. It was one of the fastest corporate jets built in its time. So it requires a lot of skill. And the crew had the requisite skills because about 15,000 hours and knowing the pilot in command, I don't think skill was particularly a problem. But to your question of whether uncontrolled airspaces are dangerous, not necessarily, but yes, they are a challenge.
I'm also joined at this moment by Captain Amit Singh, who looks very closely at flight safety. Appreciate you also joining us, Captain. But I want to come to you, Sanjay Lazar, because the Aviation Regulator, Directorate General of Civil Aviation, says that they had conducted a regulatory audit of the aircraft owner VSR 17 plane fleet, including the crash aircraft in February 2025. And we are told that the aircraft was fully airworthy. Therefore, would it be completely unfair, sensationalist to suggest that this was an aircraft that was not airworthy, because the DGCA makes it very clear that they had conducted a regulatory audit of all the aircraft of VSR in February 2025. That's just under a year ago.
Well, Rajdeep, thank you for having me on the show. First point before I get to VVIP, I also want to point out, which Captain Sam probably, there are two flying academies that have been at Baramati over the at least Carver has been there for 30 years. Carver Aviation Academy, and you had Redbird, which came in. So there are a lot of student pilots also who operate in and out of Baramati. They don't have night flying, but they also don't have visual aid automated aids, like he said. That's one point. As far as the DGCA statement, and I did read it, they do claim to have done an audit of this company and this particular aircraft last year. The point that Sam mentioned is very important. There's a 2023 crash of the same company, similar type of, Learjet 45XL at Mumbai. The AAIB has not yet come out with the report. It's 3 years since then. Isn't that an indicator of some, where we are stuck at in our system? The second thing is, of course, they've done a check, but an aircraft is a machine. At the end of the day, something could go wrong. If it has to go wrong at the nth minute or at the last hour, you really can't tell. We know here that this pilot was a very senior qualified pilot. He'd flown on bigger aircraft and big airlines as well as this, 15,000 hours in command, and he did a go around. There was apparently low visibility, which the DGCA says, and we don't know what happened that made the plane veer off into that, whether you call it a gorge or a ravine or the side shoulder, which is of this tabletop. I think our regulator needs more regulation. That's what I'd like to say. I have long since said it, including on your channel earlier. We need a restructuring of our organization because we have become too big as an aviation nation, and we are growing exponentially every year. So we need to look at restructuring the DGCA. There was a bill, CAA bill, which I think Sanat Kaul mentioned on your show a month ago when I was there. And that seems to be the need of the hour at this point, Rajdeep.
I just for a moment want to focus though on VVIPs traveling in these aircraft. Captain Amit Singh, your founder, Safety Matters, fellow Aero Society and former head flight operations and safety. I want to understand from you, in cases like this with low visibility, should the pilot in an ideal world have just turned back, gone to Pune, rather than push for a second landing? There was talk that because Mr. Pawar had a series of meetings scheduled, Zilla Parishad elections, there was possibly pressure on the pilot to land at that moment. Does it become more difficult when you're dealing with VVIPs who are working to tight deadlines, often have to go even take the risk or take a chance in low visibility?
Well, that is always a pressure. Need not be said that somebody instructed, even without instructions, if there's a VVIP on board, it then kind of a pressure that I have to perform. And a missed approach, diversion, all these are negative connotations. And from a pilot's perspective, their job is to fly from A to B. And if they divert or go around, it is taken psychologically as a failure, kind of a failure, not exactly failure. So there has to be a kind of human factor investigation. And I have written a paper on this that has been published in the Cambridge University called Cognitive Lockup, why pilots do not go around. But this is not purely a case of low visibility. It is a systemic problem, and it could happen anywhere else, even without a VVIP. Because if you talk about uncontrolled airspace, then uncontrolled airspace...
What was the systemic problem? What was the systemic problem?
See, systemic problem is that, yes, aircraft was airworthy, but the systems are approved and audited by DGCA. So the checks are carried out by the engineer, but the systems are approved and audited. And every time there is an accident, there is a special audit. So what is the outcome of the audit? Nobody knows. So there are regular audits. Why don't the regular audits fulfill the needs that there is a need for a special audit? So that is just basically to show to the public. In one of the investigation reports, in a flying school accident, the investigator at the end of it wrote that soon after the accident, the flying school was closed. And there was a DGCA audit. The purpose of the DGCA audit was only to relieve option, not to find out the problem. Had it done it in the right spirit, the accident would not have happened. So to show that we are doing things, we do an audit, special audit, and there is a lot of a hue and cry. But
Right.
Actually, one part of it, nobody knows.